Hi there, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be about things that you could fail your driving test on. So there's lots of things you could fail your driving test on, but these are things that are a little bit unusual that you might not have heard of before. And make sure that you stay listening to the end because I'm going to leave the best till last. So this is a brand new channel, so please subscribe to the channel. And if you like the videos, please let me know by liking the video and clicking the notifications so you get notified when the next video is being released. After this video, the next video that I'm going to do is going to be misconceptions about things maybe you're not sure if you'd be a pass or a fail. But this video is going to be about things that you will fail on that you may not have heard of before. So let's get started. So I've just written them down so I don't leave any out. So the first thing, let's call it number one, making sure that if you take your own car on test, that your car is fit to go on test. So that just means that the car's in good working order, it's got a tax disc on it, it's got insurance, it's got no warning lights, that your tyres are good. Make sure that your car is fit for the test, otherwise you won't be going out on your test and you'll have to rebook again. So two, make sure, this is actually very common, but make sure that you never cause another car to slow down when you pull out of a junction. This can happen when you're panicking and the road is very busy and you're trying to get out of the junction and you can't see any gaps and you think, let me just go for it. Try to make sure that you find a good gap, because if someone has to brake for you, brake hard for you, then you're going to fail. Let's call this three. Speed bumps. Make sure that when you go over a speed bump that you slow down enough and that you keep good control of the vehicle, that you don't just go flying over the speed bump. If you don't go over the speed bump smoothly, it's gonna look like you didn't see the speed bump and you can fail for reaction to hazards. And the same, a little bit like the speed bump, which is number four, is puddles. So you may not know this, but if you are driving down the road, you see a huge puddle in front of you, and you just decide that maybe there's a solid line on the right beside you and you think, oh, I can't cross over that for the puddle, I'm just going to continue. If you go through the puddle and it's a big puddle and there's pedestrians and you splash them with water, then that's going to be bad reaction to hazards as well. You're not going to be able to be splashing people walking down the side of the street. Okay, so make sure that if there is like huge puddles, that you slow down and go through them slowly. You don't know what's under the water as well, so it's a good idea to slow down. So next one, make sure that you don't stop, especially stop suddenly, emergency stop when there is no emergency. Okay, so I've had a student before stopping for a dead animal in the road, not even a big dead animal, a very small dead animal, doing emergency stop, driving at 50. You can't do that. Just make sure that when you stop suddenly, if you do need to do an emergency stop, that it is an emergency. Anything like that, that's a dead animal, you just drive over that. You don't need to be stopping for that kind of thing. But obviously they was a little bit panicked and that's what they decided to do, and that's why they failed. So just bear that in mind. So this one now is quite important. It's about the zebra crossings, pedestrian crossings. Make sure that if you stop for the pedestrian, well, you're going to have to stop if there's a pedestrian waiting to cross the crossing, but make sure that before you move off, that the pedestrian is fully off the crossing. Quite a few times I've heard of pedestrians being on the crossing and the student just driving on and they haven't fully left the crossing yet. So you must wait for the pedestrian to fully leave the crossing before you continue on. Okay. And the next one, now this is something that people do a lot in their early days of driving, but people have gone up on test and done this as well. I've heard of people doing this, and this to me is maybe just lack of practice. Make sure that you're very good with your gears before you decide to go on test, going into the wrong gear. So if you go into the wrong gear, and I mean like going from trying to go to third and going into first, you're gonna fail. That's gonna make some loud noises on the car. You can't do that. I've also heard of people going into reverse as well. You're not going to be able to get away with that on your test. Going into the wrong gear is going to be a big no-no. So make sure that you're really familiar with your gears when you go up for your test, and that you don't do anything like that. One-way streets. So I've had this before, maybe over 10 years ago. Someone's told me that this is what they did on their test. When you're taking your test and the examiner is telling you take the next left, take the next right, let's say he says, I want you to take the next right, and the next right is a one-way street. He may not tell you that. He's not going to tell you, not this one, this is a one-way street. He's going to say to you, take the next available right. He might say available, and that might be a little bit of a clue to you that maybe the next one is not available. So make sure that you know your road signs. You need to only take the turn if you can, okay? So you look, if there's a no entry sign, that's not the turn that you can take. You have to take the one afterwards. Students do make that mistake, okay? So just make sure that you know your road signs, so that you know what a no entry sign looks like, because some people even maybe wouldn't even know what the no entry sign looks like, and that's why they could make that mistake. So make sure that you know your road signs. So the next two, now these are extremely unusual. These next two, very, very unusual. But I'm going to explain to you what happened and why. So the first one is going the wrong way around a roundabout. Now, you may think, how could someone go the wrong way around the roundabout? They've been doing driving lessons. How could that happen? This was actually a student of mine many, many years back. I can remember it so clearly. The reason why this happened to them is because they was from France, and they were so used to just looking the other side of the road. They actually hadn't been living in the UK for very long, so they just moved and started to do their lessons straight away. So it was very confusing for them all the time. Now, they didn't ever do this on their lessons, but on the lessons I could tell that they was always not really knowing which way to look. So on the test, they actually went the wrong way around the roundabout. I do not know fully how they got themselves out of that situation, because I wasn't on the test with them, but yeah, they went the wrong way around the roundabout. Maybe they had to reverse, maybe the examiner stopped them, I don't know. So if you are driving from somewhere else and you know you're driving on the other side of the road all the time, make sure that you're so familiar and so comfortable, because that is just a big no-no. You're not going to be able to pass like that. And I think that was the only thing they did actually fail on. And this last one, which is just so unusual, because this one also happened to me, but I've never had that ever happen, and I don't even think that I've heard of anyone have that happen. But this is what happened. This driver was like so nervous before her test, and I was standing outside watching her drive off, as I usually would do, and she got in the car, and the examiner must have said something like, you know, you'll show me, tell me questions, show me that the indicators are working, show me that the hazard light is working. So she had the ignition on, and just remember, she had the ignition on, because this is really important. She had the ignition on and she done those checks, and then next after that, the examiner sits in, I see everyone put their seatbelts on, and I see her doing all of her checks to move off, and she puts her signal on, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Well, she goes to move off. We're parked on a slight hill, and it wasn't a very steep hill, it was a very slight hill, but it's a busy area. And she goes to move off, and she rolls backwards, and she stops straight away with the brake, and she composes herself, and she tries again, and she does this 3 times, and each time she rolls back. And on the last attempt, she must have just thought to herself, right, I'm just going to go for it this time, because it's taking me so long to start this test. And she goes off to move off again, and she rolls back, and she keeps rolling back, and then the examiner presses the brake. And then I already know what she's done wrong. I don't know if you know what she's done wrong, but I knew from the very beginning what she'd done wrong. So the examiner gets out, and he looks at me smiling, and I'm looking at him, and I'm just like, she didn't switch on the car, did she? And he's like, no, she didn't. No, I'm sorry. And he says, oh, you know, I did ask her if she wanted to continue the test just for the experience, but she was too upset. So yeah, she actually forgot to switch on the car, and that's why the car was rolling backwards. and she never realized, because she had the ignition on and she could see all the lights on the car and she was signaling and she could hear the signal. So yeah, make sure that you don't make that mistake, because that's a really bad mistake to make. You know, she just couldn't figure out what was wrong there. So remember to like this video if you found it useful, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one.